Good morning, everyone. Happy Tuesday, and welcome to another episode of Tea and Coffee with Paula and
Jay. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're all good. Thanks for the messages. Where were you? You guys love us so much that even when we take a day off,
Yeah,
you
it's
reach
great.
out.
Yeah,
We love that.
it's lovely.
We love
Yeah.
that. That's great.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for being here. We took the day off. We needed a guest. We didn't have one, so we took the opportunity to get some stuff done too.
Yeah. It was more. We could have gotten a guest. It was more about. I think we needed the time.
Yeah,
I've been pretty exhausted recently, and needing to get some more rest into me. I must be an old man, getting up there.
dude, I'm feeling. I'm the old woman to go with your old man. For sure. No, look, there's a lot going on with regards to the events we're putting on, and of course, all the mental gymnastics involved in preparing it, organizing it, things like that. So it has been taking its toll. Plus, we're coming out of winter, and it's all very. But yeah, no, it's. Thank you for still tuning in. We really appreciate it.
That's a clinical term, by the way. That's a clinical term. Yeah, no, there's a lot of work to do an event, not just do it, but to plan it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're working on planning out Saskatchewan and BC for the shot, plus another big event that we're doing in Red Deer on the 11th of April. Yeah, we've been busy bees, but we also made a decision because there's now schooling through the church, a homeschooling thing once a week, Mondays.
Yeah.
So, and we just discovered this.
Mm.
And you went to it yesterday.
Yes, I did.
And this is going to be an ongoing thing.
Yes, it's going to be an ongoing thing that I'll be taking the boys to, and it's it's an all day, it's a 1 day, all day event where they get to learn. And I believe I've still got to look into it, but the curriculum is classic conversation, so it goes by CC, and I'll actually have the opportunity to be a tutor for it. So I'll be one of the teachers. So that's going to take up my days on Monday, which means I have a bit of an earlier start with the boys too. So we're having some conversations of perhaps not having shows on a Monday in order to
probably
accommodate that.
Probably going to end up doing that. Yeah, so go down to 4 days a week. But we're also talking about adding more throughout the day. Hey, what's going on? Type of conversation, possibly with me. Little shorter clips of that as we continue to build our presence online and get information to everybody, even in a more timely fashion. We do have the studio. My desk is right there. And when things pop up, maybe I can just hop over here, turn on the cameras, and produce.
Yeah, exactly. And I know because some people have said like, oh, we can't do the 1 hour or 2 hour content. Fair enough. But the little snippets of news, 8 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there. It's more digestible for some, and also again gives us the opportunity, which is what we kind of do this morning, to give you the news of the day, and you, if free, would have the opportunity to give people the news of the day as it occurs, and maybe your thoughts on something that's breaking.
Yeah, and it's kind of where my consumption has been recently, is things between 10 and 20 minutes online. They're not scheduled. It's not live. It's just videos. I've been watching more of those, especially as the news around the world keeps breaking daily now. So we're looking at some more other formats to provide for you all. Let us know in the chat, in the comments, what you think about that. We'll still have, I think, the 4 days a week morning show because we enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
It's a good time for us as well. But we got to figure out ways to deal with the platform being used as efficiently as possible to get as much information out as possible so that we can grow that audience as large as possible.
Yep, what he said. No, I agree. I support that. And as our lives are kind of adapting, as our boys are getting older, and again, homeschooling, that is the priority for me to be able to work with them on that. So trying to find a healthy balance between that and all the other extracurricular activities that we
Somebody got elected to something somewhere sometime last night, right?
Yes, and I'm now on the Buck Creek Community Hall board. They had their AGM yesterday, and I got on as the co-secretary because they have two. They split the job of the secretary is quite extensive with regards to what they have to do. Is not just minutes and agendas, but they also currently at Buck Creek they also do social media and things. So we have one secretary who deals with the social media stuff, and then the other secretary, because she said I can't do agendas and whatnot in minutes. So she wanted to step down, and I took it over yesterday. And the board is as is. Oh no, we got a new VP. Well done to Kristen for that. And yeah, we're trying to really grow the profile of Buck Creek Hall. It's been around there for generations. And we're trying to bring in now more events, such as the monthly local market, thanks to BT. And yeah, looking forward to being a part of that, because we've kind of been involved since October last year. We kind of got an awakening with Buck Creek. I really like the little hall. I love the community, and yeah, just playing a role in helping them out.
Yeah, so now you're on 3 boards. So UCPCA board, you're on the library board, and now you're on the community hall board. You're anything but bored.
No, I'm anything but bored. And so, yes, like I said, try to find that healthy balance in life, and extracurricular activities is very important. And my witch's brew helps me, and magnesium helps clear the brain fog.
No, you're doing great. I'm very proud of you. Really
Thank you.
encouraging you to keep doing this, because I think it's very helpful for the community and for us as well. I think it really helps having something to do in addition to the homeschooling and the show. And that's why we're kind of making a few little changes to have a little bit more time in our days to provide that. So 4 days a week. And then next week we won't be on. So we made a decision this morning, because starting Sunday, we're heading down to Calgary. No, we're heading down Monday. We're heading down Monday to Calgary. Then we're going all the way to Winnipeg, and then back to Edmonton for Saturday.
The next Saturday.
So yeah, we'll be on the road. So no shows next week. So just a heads up.
Yes, and our locals chatter, Common Sense 25. Good morning, all, from minus 19.4 chilly Manitoba. I'm hoping by next week it is warmer. I'm hoping for minus 19. No, we're done with that cold. We've got maybe a minus 14, minus 15 at most on our horizon, but otherwise we've got temperatures coming up. Like, it's amazing. Well, Alberta, thank you very much. Maybe you're giving us the promise of the sunrise of independence that's going to be coming our way, but we've had a really interesting winter, and we've got some really decent temperatures and sunshine ahead of us. So Manitoba, please, next week, I'd like warmer temperatures.
Yeah, and it's going to be Wednesday in Winnipeg. Hey, Wednesday in Winnipeg, and Thursday in Selkirk.
Yep.
And a lot of people are already registering for those. But thank you very much to Ken Drysdale and the team out there for coordinating this. So we'll be leaving Tuesday morning from Calgary, heading all the way to Winnipeg to be there for Wednesday evening, up to Selkirk, and then hit the road early Friday to get back to Edmonton for Saturday morning, where we're in the theaters, city center at Landmark.
Yep.
Friday morning at 9:30. Hopefully everybody can make it to that one. Yeah,
no, looking forward to seeing you there. We had our Drayton Valley first cinema event, which I think is pretty cool, at Landmark on Saturday in Drayton Valley. Thank you to everyone who turned up. We really appreciate it. And thank you again for always the positive feedback regarding the documentary. I'm glad you guys have been, I always say enjoying it's the wrong word, but you're taking something from it, and you appreciate the efforts that have been put in. And also grateful to hear that Dan is really sharing this message out. So appreciate him for that too.
Yep. And then tonight we're in Stony Plain. There's 2 showings, 6 and 7:30. You can go to supportsean.ca, reserve your seat, or just show up, bring a friend or 2. That one's filling up too. But that's why we have 2 showings for that one. It's a smaller venue, but we're trying to get as many people through as possible. So that's tomorrow, and then tonight. Yes, absolutely tonight. And then the next one after that, I think, is Medicine Hat on the 12th.
Yes, on Thursday, you're in Medicine Hat.
Yeah, and that one's filling up too as well. So support Sean.ca, grab your seat, spread the word, do us a favor, post it somewhere, get it into your groups, Telegram, Facebook, all the others, because we are censored. Dan is heavily censored and shadow banned. So all your help will assist. And then we'll show that documentary a few more times this week. And we get ready for the road trip next week. And then Saskatchewan and BC, we're planning out a full week for each of you, because we want to make sure we hit as many as we can, try to get 4 to 5 in during the week. But we'll keep you all posted. That's likely going to be the second half of April, where we'll do BC for a week and Saskatchewan for a week. We're just not sure which one yet. We're working on those details as well. We also have 2 weeks of independence conversations coming to you that I have planned out. I'll be at the end of March. So soon, when we get back from Winnipeg to do Edmonton, I think at that point there's a bit of a break for the Sean Hartman story, as I do a couple weeks, one with Marty up north and Angela Tabak, I think, something like that. I'm so sorry, Angela. Tanya Clemens and Ferguson as well, who was on the show not too long ago. So I'll be running around southern Alberta with them for 2 weeks. And then we have our big show coming up on the 11th in Red Deer. It looks like it will be at Legacy Center. And we will then get back into a couple more weeks of the shot, Saskatchewan and BC, and then keep you posted. Yep. Because what we're trying to do is get these live events to succeed. We want to get out there, meet people, grow the audience that way as well. Because we got to really find a way to make this show work for us on all levels.
Yes, no, agree. And just want to give a shout out to a couple of people who've given us a shout out. So Betty Cobbett, oh gosh, Betty, I can't wait to see you. Yeah. It exhausts me hearing about everything you two are doing. Way to go. And then one, it didn't show up, so I've got to read it in Rumble. We got a little super chat, but it's for, hold on a second. A huge shout out to a couple of canvassers for the extra effort to sign folks up for the referendum petition. Thank you, Angie and Paul. And we have to chat about the Drayton Valley. What's her name? Nassim, and I can't remember the gentleman's name. But after our event at Drayton Valley Cinema on Saturday, we could see them. So this is what, about 11 o'clock, 11:30? Yeah, just after 11:30. They're setting up in the parking lot on the corner, and with their giant Alberta flag, pickup truck. The wind was howling. We had crazy winds that day. And thank you very much. Just in front of us, they got 3 people signed. They saw the flag, they saw them, they drove into the parking lot, and they came and did some signatures. So thank you very much for all the little pop-ups that people do around to get signatures. It's really, really appreciated. Thank you for your time and effort.
Yeah, and we're going to have Mitch Sylvester on tomorrow as we talk about the big push for the April 7th court is going to return about the injunction from the First Nations, and there's a lot of desire to get as many signatures as possible before that date. So Mitch will be on tomorrow, and then Thursday we have Dennis Modry, Dr. Modry, to come on and talk about that CBC article, the smear campaign that's going on there. I believe that's the first interview because he's currently on vacation, and that was the first time to get him. And then on Friday we have Nick Holster, who's been providing a lot of information on X recently and all over the place about the truth about the COVID vax, the harms it's done, especially to children, but to everybody as well. So he'll be on to talk to some of those studies. Excellent. Let's go ahead and get into the news because we've got a couple days to catch up on for sure. And here we go. All right. So thank you very much to Matt Arid and Michael Yon. Okay. So I can't say we divided our audience. There's certainly some people who didn't like some of the things that they had to say and some of the positions or opinions that they have. But overall, holy smokes, that was quite the episode. Both of them didn't know each other before. They're brothers from another mother because they absolutely have done a lot of the same historical research, following certain groups, cults even. That was quite the episode. So we got a lot of great comments out of people, and then a couple that they weren't so pleased. But this show isn't, and this is one of the challenges that we're fighting through. We're not an audience-driven show, which means we don't focus on what the audience desires. We focus on what is interesting to us and what's going on at that time. And that can mean, quite frequently, sometimes our audience doesn't like what's on there. I'm not going to apologize for that because I think that's what journalism is. Sometimes you're not going to like what you see. And that's kind of the point because how else are you going to learn other things or find out or be exposed to other things if you're not true to journalism? So I think overall people enjoyed it, but there's certainly some people that didn't. And people have opinions and people have perspectives that will not jive with you. And that's just human nature. So thanks to everybody else who stuck around and watched the whole thing, and those that went back to watch it a second time because there's a lot of information there. So thank you very much to Matt and Michael for their time, and you're see them both again soon. Maya, she's doing much better now. So the breathing tube is out. This is a big step forward. Again, as somebody who's gone through a loved one with a brain injury, we understand this very, very too intimately on how this is massive progress. This is fantastic progress. Going from not going to make it through the night to a month on and breathing on her own, paying attention to the TV, moving parts of her body. These are all great things. The human brain is an amazing organ, and prayers certainly go a long ways. So keep those coming for Maya. All right. So this one kind of bothered me a bit because I've been through this too, just not to this extreme. So there's a journalist who was murdered and in Ontario, stabbed 18 times for exposing and doing journalistic work about the Khalistani movement. We went through this when we talked to both sides. Again, journalism, you're supposed to be able to get out there to have conversations, and people hold you as a journalist accountable and sometimes for doing your job. And sadly, this woman was murdered in Ontario, Windsor. CBC, she was talking to CBC before that. She was expressing her concerns to the RCMP or the Windsor police or both. They were saying the same thing they said to us when we were going through some of this, which was unless they show up at your home, there's not much we can do. And that's exactly what the RCMP said to us when we started receiving death threats. Then they did start showing up at her home, went to her door, started a fire, and they still didn't do anything. So sadly, she's no longer with us. So I want to kind of pay attention to this and not so much tread lightly, but just keep the awareness on that we do have terrorists in Canada.
Yeah.
Canadian government is doing nothing about it. And the U.S. is paying more attention to this than the Canadian government is because terrorism and terrorists are rampant here in Alberta and Canada. This needs to change.
I want to share something as well, just along that note. So I have a lot of family and friends in England. And so speaking of local domestic terrorism, so it says, this is from the UK. The lack of immigration control here has created very tangible threat on our own soil. It's not a fear of war reaching us. I'll talk about Iran. It's a fear that we've got militant Islamists hiding in our communities. Well, not even hiding, to be honest. It's a very sad state of affairs, but it's okay because the Prime Minister is going to give illegals $40,000 to leave. Can't afford the £300 to give fuel allowance for pensioners who paid into the system all their lives. But hey ho.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah, and we're seeing that kind of thing here as well. Well, thank you, Mark Nixon, for sharing all that information. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh man, these are the same people that sent us death threats. Yeah, so we'll just keep ourselves safe.
Yeah.
We had installed a bunch of security and took some security measures after that happened. And we haven't had any problems here at home, but it's a real threat. Really sad to hear the RCMP and Windsor Police did not take that seriously. Mia, once again, she's posting and she's doing a great job out there. She finished the most difficult piece of writing she's ever attempted, a paper on trans as an extreme overvalued belief. So check out her work because she is definitely one of the top people in Canada and is getting far more recognition and is doing a great job on getting information out there when it comes to the history of the trans ideology and the damage it's doing. More and more and more professionals, experts, doctors are starting to pay more attention to this. And she's one of in the forefront that's bringing this forward to everybody. We give her a follow, which is _cry, Mia, MIA, River.
I'll pop it in the chat.
Yeah. It's also for the listeners. Because we're now also streaming live on Substack. So hello to everybody that's watching from there. So here's Nicholas Holster. He's going to be on Friday. Vaccinated children are sicker across all 22 chronic disease categories, according to our peer-reviewed reanalysis of the landmark Henry Ford Vax versus Unvax study. So again, this is peer-reviewed, so it's not just them saying it, but some of the big ones, neurodevelopmental disorders up 1,254%, autoimmune disease up 1,120%. That's just insane. All of these are triple-digit percentages going up. Mental health disorders up 696%. That's just insane. So he's going to be on Friday. And we're going to dive into this a lot more. And this is not even the only study. There's another study about cancers and another one about ailments in adults too. But this was specifically around children. Their cancer's up 54%. Autism's up 180%. My gosh, what have they done?
I was going to say, what are they doing to us?
Well, not us. We stayed away from this, but what have they done? Like, this is the next generation. We may not fully understand for another generation, on the damage that was done here, especially when they tried to have children of their own. We'll see how this works out. I'm not optimistic, though. But Nicholas is on Friday.
Right.
Awkward alert. CBC, for some reason, they brought in this American. If you look into his history, he has got quite the left extremist ideology. He thinks 9/11 was a good thing. There's a bunch of other things with this guy. He shocks his dog on his lives. These are the things that people pulled up pretty quickly. This guy is known for being a left extremist. So what does the CBC do? They bring him forward to talk about Alberta independence and why separation is wrong for Alberta. So although that's awkward, I also said CBC has an American, the original separatist, 1776, on to try and explain why Alberta shouldn't separate. They accuse separatists of seeking American assistance. This is another admission that the movement is much larger than they will admit. They couldn't bring a Canadian in. They couldn't bring an Alberta in. They brought an American in. They're just got nothing when it comes to having good conversations. They're not even trying to keep us together. They're just, this is gross. And then of all the Americans to bring in, it's one with a history of having left-wing extreme values or ideology and sharing them. I don't even know if they vetted or maybe they did. That's exactly what they liked. Mia again. So sorry, she's made it twice now, but she was in a National Post with her article, BC Human Rights Tribunal Ignores Science to Silence Debate on Gender Ideology. This is the Barry Neufeld ruling, $750,000 fine. And she's highlighting here how they're forcing large fines onto people for an ideology that doesn't even have any roots in science at all. And the BC tribunal has ignored that part of it and is just focused on ideology. So it should be the BC ideology enforcement. There's no human rights going on here. BC Ideology Enforcement Tribunal. And it's a big problem. You're going to see a lot of other human rights tribunals follow this lead, all the way up to the Canadian Human Rights. They've already done a lot of that. But these large fines, $750,000 for saying men are not women and women are not men, and they can't be. Yep. Well, they can't. So thank you very much to Mia again. This is our National Post article, slightly different than the other posts you had, but it's on fire. Keith Wilson, post here, Alberta needs to separate and quickly. This is madness because from the National Post, there's this article about the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court says existence of Canada's border is discrimination. My gosh, that's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, completely captured by the ideology. So what, no border? Are we taking a step further into this whole one country unity? We have the European Union. You see how well that works. This guy's already calling for the North American Union, but he probably doesn't want it with Trump.
Yeah, I was going to say, like,
it's just so silly. Like, what do you mean borders are discrimination? How about he open up his front door? Remove the lock on his gate. People can just walk into his home because a front door is the border for your castle. So this is just similar to that stupid comment by that singer that
Billie Eilish.
No one's illegal on stolen land crap. But she's in a gated community and doesn't invite people into her home. Or will allow them to just walk in either. This is the same thing. Okay, well then lead by example there, Chief Justice. Open your home. Take off your locks. Open that gate. Let people know where you live, because there should be no border around your home then. Then you'll probably change your opinion pretty quickly. This is crazy. But Keith Wilson's correct. This is one of the main reasons why Alberta should look at separation, because with separation and independence and a new constitution, we won't be under the Supreme Court of Canada. Supreme Court of Canada will just be this court 3,000 kilometers away that other people have to live under, not us. This is one of the main reasons you should be considering your options here with independence. You'll have a much different structure, and it won't be the Canadian one. So the Supreme Court can say whatever they want. This is going to become a problem, especially with land rights, as you've seen in BC. All right. So why vaccinated people CNN.
Like, how do you
Like,
say
it's
this with a
hard.
straight
This is
face?
2021. Why vaccinated people dying from COVID-19 doesn't mean the vaccines are ineffective. That literally is exactly
Like,
what that means.
jeez.
But this is from 2021, so don't forget. The chief nerd said, good account, by the way, follow it. The chief nerd. This belongs in the fake news hall of fame because in its entire title, this is exactly what that means. If something's not working, that's exactly what it means. It's ineffective. So, and I wanted to highlight here, never forget that the $1 trillion propaganda machine, including legacy media, as revealed by Pfizer in their defense to Dan Hartman's lawsuit, they didn't say it was safe or effective. It was government and media who changed the truth. We cover this and more in our documentary about Sean's death. For screenings and to request a screening, visit supportsean.ca. So some of you may not know this, but December 2025, Pfizer filed their defense in Dan Hartman's case about Sean, and they've admitted it wasn't safe or effective. They never said it was, and it was your government who did. They're not saying that it wouldn't kill people or harm people. They never said that. That's why they're saying they're not liable for the death of Sean, is because they never claimed he wouldn't die.
Yeah.
It was the government that did, and he should take it up with the government, which he is. But the government got removed from the lawsuit because they argue that they don't have a duty of care. So this will be a very interesting lawsuit with Pfizer as it continues through trial. We'll definitely keep you posted, but keep in mind, it was your government and media, state media especially, that was lying to you. John Cleese, and we're about 3 minutes away from our guest. Thanks a lot for sharing on your X. I see that. That's awesome. John Cleese comes out with good stuff and then crazy stuff. I don't think he's picked a lane. So currently, he's saying watching the police in England behaving like this causes me considerable harm and distress because he's. Oh, is the post gone? Oh, there we go. Because the police are now, well, not now. They've been doing this for quite some time. Harassing the people who are just asking questions, and because they're asking questions, the police are saying they're causing harm and distress to others, and for that, they're being arrested or escorted out. John Cleese did a wise post saying, watching the police in England behave like this causes me considerable harm and distress. Should I call the police? And I just want to call him out because, frankly, he loves Trudeau and he loves Carney, and he's posted that many times. He thinks that they're wonderful. So pick a lane, John Cleese. You cannot make wise statements like this and support Mark Carney. He's the one who destroyed the UK economy that led to mass migration and the police state in the UK when he was a governor of the Bank of England. Maybe John Cleese should look into that. And now he's in Canada repeating the same. So I'm glad that people like John Cleese are coming out and saying, hey, the Human Rights Commission in BC is a reason why I'm not going to go to BC. And some of this stuff is pretty crazy. But then he loves Mark Carney and posts about that too.
I think comedians are very interesting characters because they are artists. They're in the arts, so they're typically maybe seen as left-leaning. However, they have always been at the forefront when it comes to don't censor me.
Yeah.
So that's always been very interesting. They've always been they've always spoken out about saying, no, look, it's just a joke. It just because you're offended doesn't make it offensive. So they've always been advocates for the free speech side of things, but because I believe they're in the arts.
So as long as it affects them, then they stand up. But they don't go as far as understanding how we got to there.
Yeah.
Like, how do we get to this ideology in human rights? It's the Liberal government, which is now Carney. And Carney was part of this for quite some time. He's the one that shut down bank accounts and advised on that for the protesters. Like John Cleese, all I'm saying to you is spend a little bit more time researching who it is that you're gloating and very pleased about, and understand how that ripple effect is causing the things that you don't like in Canada. Pick a lane is what I'm saying there. And we are out of time. Let me just see this next one. See if save. Oh, yeah. Okay. So just quickly do this one. So John Rustad, who used to be the leader of the BC Conservative Party, has now come out with this fantastic post about how there were no graves in Kamloops. 215 graves were not ever proven. And it's a long post, like too long, didn't read, almost long. But great, fine. Okay, yeah, you're on that bandwagon now. But that's the reason why you kicked Dallas Brody out of the party and others, because they said the exact same thing. The exact same thing. So John Rustad identifies as Dallas Brody. And when Dallas said this, you kicked her out of the party. And a public apology is in order, John. Because if you're going to change your tune on something, sure, that's fine. You can do that and encourage that. That's a rational thinking. But you also should apologize when you're wrong and you've harmed others. You kicked people out of your party for saying the exact same thing. All right, so let's go ahead and get our guest on. He's been awesome because we had him scheduled last week and we asked him to reschedule because we were exhausted. We had a long drive, and that was from Mir. Yeah. So thank you very much to Sheldon. And Sheldon, good morning. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jason. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Okay, so the very first question, I'm pretty sure you're the authority on this. How do you say your last name?
Yakiwchuk.
Yakiwchuk.
There you go, babe.
Okay, cool.
Everybody gets it wrong. It's I don't even mind when people get it wrong. When I went to school with my sister, so we were in the same schools all at the same time, and it was funny because all the teachers would get our name wrong, and in the yearbooks they would get our name wrong, but they would get it wrong separately. So my sister's last name would be spelled different than mine, and they'd both be wrong. So it's for me, it's nothing.
Yeah, growing up with Levine prior to Avril Lavigne was always fun because people couldn't pronounce it either, and they spelled it a bunch of different ways. Thankfully for Avril, she kind of fixed that a little bit. But yeah, I can imagine that you had some trouble. So they spelled it wrong for both of you. Did they ever get it right?
I don't remember. It was a long time ago.
Well, let's go ahead and introduce you, Sheldon, to our audience, because I don't know if I'm sure some of them are very familiar with your work and stuff online. But let's go ahead and introduce you to, especially my wife. She didn't know who you were until I explained to her this morning.
I'm just a Calgarian, just an Albertan. I've run for municipal office, write a Substack, and try to keep active with what's up and coming inside of political events, inside of the province, inside of the country, inside of the city. There's a lot going on right now that I think that a lot of people are unaware of. There's a lot of information that's being spread by legacy media that's not 100% correct. So, I think, for people like yourself and myself and a lot of us others, we just want to make sure that the word gets out there. And we all have our own takes on things, our own independent look. And I'm just another voice inside of the community.
You're a good one, though. You're a good one. Like, we don't always agree on everything, but we're very respectful. And I've met you in person now a couple times at least. You're going to Cornerstone, I understand, Sean Newman's event coming up, right?
Yeah, I'll be there. Somebody's invited me along. Sean usually offers up a ticket for me to attend. I haven't touched base with Sean this year, but I've been to his previous ones, barring the one in Lloydminster. That's the only one I've missed. And no, I'll definitely be going out to Sean's thing this year. I just got to get a post up on it and make sure everybody else is aware.
Yeah, for those that are checking that out, that's March 28th, I believe. That's a Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. I was planning to go, but we may have another event scheduled in Red Deer that day, so we'll keep everybody posted on that. But it was a good event last time I went there. He has good speakers, and I think the networking portion of it was very valuable. And I ran into you and I think others at that last one. But you were also at the Unify event, right? That's another place I saw you. I saw you in Calgary.
Yes, yeah, I was one of the speakers at the We Unify event. I was on stage with, who was I on with? Marty and Wyatt Claypool, Ted, and I can't remember the other fellow's name. But yeah, no, we had our chance at the We Unify. That was actually a really good event as well.
Right on. So you're getting out there, you're doing what we're kind of doing. We're trying to get information out. And you're also very supportive of the process of getting to a referendum. So I've noticed that several of your posts have been about Alberta, the future of Alberta. And are you one of the people who are ready to vote, or are you still making your way through that process?
Oh, no, I was ready to vote before the final question dropped. Last year when we went through the whole Canada Forever, whatever that movement was. It was during my municipal campaign, so there wasn't a lot that I could talk about. There was no value inside of a municipal election in talking about the province. So I wanted to keep things a lot more central, and so I really couldn't talk a lot about it then. there was no value in my campaign about it. So now I'm very vocal about it. I'm very supportive of it, and I want to see it happen. I want to see Albertans have their chance to have their say, and that's what I committed an entire series to on the referendum questions that the Premier dropped.
Yeah, let's jump into that one, because that's one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on, is because you're Substack. And we've been talking about that for a couple of weeks now. We had Leighton Gray on, Bruce Party. We had a couple more people on during the week to talk about what was the point of Danielle Smith to bring these first the 5 policy questions and then the 4 constitutional questions to a referendum in October, when the fast track, or the plan already, as long as signatures are reached, was to have an independence referendum in October. So what was your initial gut response when you heard her announcement come out with that?
I think it was the same as everybody's, as like, what's even going on here? I had to sit down and kind of chew through it for a couple of days before I started to really galvanize any sort of thoughts towards this. And looking at it as from a political standpoint, and then looking at it from a marketing standpoint, I just flipped off one of my hats and went back to, what my career has dictated over the last 30 years. And that, this is, to me, it just seems like a really simple process of guidance. When you're trying to sell an item or a product, and I brought this up in one of my Substacks, it's easier for people to get involved in a conversation than it is to be hit point blank with a single question. And I brought that back to, when people walk into a retail outlet and, and they say, or the person that greets them says, "Can I help you find anything?" Or, whatever their initial question is. And it scares people away, because your automatic reaction is, "No, thanks, I'm just looking." And you browse around, you start sweating uncomfortably, and then you leave the store. So, it's bad to approach a situation with a single question when you can open up a conversation through something like 10 questions, or, the 9 questions that she proposed, the 10th one, which is going to be the inevitable. So I think that, from looking at it at that lens, and, there's a lot of other sales that I've kind of tied into this. It's what it is it's trying to get people out to have their say on what's happening inside of the province. That's a pathway towards separation, and to me, that's what it seems like. It's in sales, we call it selling the sizzle, not the steak. Don't think about the steak, sell the sizzle, sell the smell. This is what it can look and sound like. This is what we're bringing to the table. And then boom, the 10th question drops, and all of a sudden it doesn't seem like one of these fringe policies or one of these fringe questions. It seems like the natural flow of events. That's how I see it, and that's how I try to explain it throughout my Substack.
Okay, so that was one of the only thing, by the way, that I was able to highlight from it that I thought was a pro, which was you basically set up the referendum as a vote yes campaign. All these questions, people are going to say yes to it. Maybe that carries forward all the way to independence as well. And I see what you're laying out there. You're like, well, if you like these 5 things and these 4 things, then you're going to like this one as well, the steak. I get that part. But do you see that some of the market is going to see these as an alternative to the referendum question? Like, if she does these 9 things, we don't need independence? Or do you see that some of the market will not see it as a steak? They'll see it as a side, and maybe they don't want the side.
It's entirely possible. The biggest portion of it is that we're going to need a lot of people coming out to the referendum and voting. So the 9 questions are an introduction to get the additional crowd. So if you've seen the municipal election turnouts last year, you'd realize they were horrible. The worst that we've seen so far. People are dropping, they're falling out of politics. I don't think they feel like their voices are being represented. And keep that point in mind. Their voices aren't being represented. So what's happening right now is Premier Smith has come out with 9 questions saying, well, we want to represent your voice. And here's how we want to represent it. We want you to have your say on it. And I mean, this flies, completely in contrast with the NDP. And I'm sure I missed the first part of the show. I'm not sure if you covered the First Nations chiefs and legislature yesterday. But basically the NDP is saying, no, we want to surrender democratic rights to the 12 First Nations chiefs instead of allowing Albertans to have their say. And the premier is completely on the other side of the spectrum saying, no, we want you to have your say. We want your take on what's happening inside of the province. We want your voice in leading the province. And I think that that's very big. So I believe it's an idea to incentivize people to come out, not for that one question. Because the talk at the water cooler on, what is it, October 12th is the vote, or October 19th?
19th.
Whatever it is. The 19th, sorry. So on the 20th, the talk around the water cooler doesn't have to be, did you vote for separation? The talk around the water cooler could be, how did you vote in the other 9 questions? And then people aren't so uncomfortable with it. So we've seen, I'm sure you've kind of kept in the loop on what people are saying on X or social media. They want to sign, but they're afraid. Or, they don't want to be seen at one of these places because people are taking pictures with their camera and trying to expose them or dox them, which are horrible tactics by the leftists to play. But it is making people afraid to get out just to a signing station, just to exercise their democratic rights. So when, what could incentivize people is they can say, listen, I'm going out to answer these 9 questions. And, whether they disagree or agree with their spouse, they get to have their own personal voice represented in private by just putting a check in the box. And I think that that's important. So, I'm still leaning towards the same thing. We need a lot of people to show up. We need a pathway built for them. And let's move on from there.
Well, I definitely would concede that more people are going to show up to the referendum now.
Yeah.
There's going to be a bunch of people that want to protect the immigrants. That's going to be their angle. NDP is going to push a lot of people. The union is going to push a lot of people to get out there to vote, especially on those first 4 or 5 questions. Some of the pushback, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, is she doesn't need a referendum for those policy questions, for the first 5, about whether or not we should be funding immigration or immigrants with our social services here in Alberta. She doesn't need a referendum for that. But what do you think her motive for asking those 5 questions are? Because she knows where her base is at. She knows what the UCP wants. She was just at the AGM. They brought forward policies very similar to this already. It's been very clear during the Alberta Next panel that she did when she went and did all those town halls, and the recommendations from the Alberta Next panel were very in line with this. So she doesn't need to ask anymore. The question is why is she asking? Is she trying to get these conversations that you're talking about happening on the NDP Liberal side of Alberta? Who is this for if she already has the answers from her base?
Well, because she doesn't represent her base. She represents the entire province. She doesn't have a mandate. She never ran on a mandate for immigration. That was never part of the political conversation because it wasn't as big in the forefront of Albertans' minds as it is right now. When we see all the situations that are going on, the overpopulations inside of schools where 30% of the children inside of Calgary's classrooms speak a different language, when the classrooms are overpopulated, like I give the example of, in my Substack, of the school that my granddaughters go to right now. I obviously can't say it, but my sons went to the same school. We've been in the community for, over 30 years. So my sons went to the same school. My granddaughters are now going there. So when my sons were in this school, they had 25 to 30 children inside of the school. My oldest granddaughter's class has 45. Now, if you take that 45 number and realize that 30% of those students don't speak English as a first language or struggle to communicate, there's a big conversation that parents need to have. And that's about the future of their children. So this isn't a partisan issue. This is about the future of my children. This isn't about voting left or voting right. This isn't about, supporting people. Canadians, Calgarians, Albertans, we're a very giving people. We always have been. We've been respected on the world stage for being kind. But we're being kind to a point that's detrimental to the future of our children and our next generations. And because the premier doesn't have that mandate set and selected or elected for, I believe that these are important questions. These are going to get people that are either the fence sitters or the people that are on the left, in the same way that blanket rezoning got a lot of the leftists coming out saying, no, I don't want blanket rezoning. It's a terrible policy. That was a big portion of what the entire municipal election was about. Now, immigration is going to be a next portion of what the referendum's about, and it's inevitably going to be a part of what the next provincial election's about. So I think it's important that Albertans are brought up to speed. If they haven't had the time to do the research, they can go through the questions. They can go through and think, what does this mean to my family? My mother or my grandmother or my child can't get into a family doctor because 6 million other Canadians can't get into a family doctor either. Is that a big portion of the conversation? It absolutely has to be. When we see there's 100,000 Canadians that we're approaching that 100,000 number of Canadians that have opted for MAID over our medical care, when we see $1 billion that Carney just committed to giving better healthcare services to people that are supposed to be kicked out of the country, they don't qualify for migration, refugee status, or immigration into the country. They're getting $1 billion of healthcare that exceeds the value of what Canadians get. That's on the backs of the taxpayers. That's because we're borrowing that money, and it's now at credit card rates. $1 billion per week is debt servicing. Now, this $1 billion that we're giving to healthcare services to people that don't qualify for it, Albertans should have their say on that, and they should say no. No, I think that because I'm a taxpayer, because I've worked to support this province, because I'm rooted inside of my community, because my children, my mother, because I need healthcare services, this is important. Because my child needs an education. These are important conversations. And I think that that's what's going to bring Albertans out. It should. Because if this doesn't wake them up, then we're in bigger trouble than a separation vote that has us seemingly divided.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of challenge a little bit more about your position on this direct democracy. She didn't receive a mandate to go ahead and get this done. But that argument can be, and look, and I support a lot of the things she's done. For example, no puberty blockers for under 16. Parents have the right to know what's going on with their kid in the school. Protecting women's sports. All of these I totally agree with, but she didn't referendum those either, and those were not on the ballot when she was voted in. These were things that she needed to do. Protecting children in schools, totally agree with it. Removing, stopping the strike, using the notwithstanding clause, totally agree with it, but she didn't go to referendum on that either. And then there's other issues that came out of the next panel. So pension plan, provincial police, collect provincial taxes. I had her on the show and we went through all 6 of the main sections of that. And she said, these are all things we're studying and looking at. But she did not say anything about a referendum for immigration. She hinted at a referendum for pension plan, but then boom, she drops the immigration one. And I'm also for having a voice and starting a conversation. I love that part of what you're saying. But what I'm trying to understand is she's the leader. She has her base. She's the UCP leader. She may be running Alberta government, and I get that, but you're not going to be a successful leader if you're focused on consensus instead of conviction. And I think this issue shouldn't have gone to referendum. It's already been done, because the only thing, and we've seen it happen right away out of the NDP, ATP, ATA, and others, is they're calling her a Nazi. They're going after her, saying you're going after and blaming everything on immigrants. There's no way they're going to start saying, oh, I see where you're coming from, fiscally responsible. I get it. That's just not the way they are wired. They're not conservatives. If they were conservatives, they'd be conservatives. So I'm still not seeing the connection for this particular subject to go to referendum when other issues that she did work on didn't need to go to referendum. And there's other major issues that she's being asked to take a look at that isn't going to referendum either, that maybe I think it would make more sense, like the pension plan one. The pension plan, I would have supported her more on that particular issue, because that one, it's a toss-up. It's about 50-50. It's not very clear if Albertans want their own pension plan. But immigration, I think that one was pretty clear. So I'm just going to push back a little bit, because she wasn't given a mandate to protect children, but I'm glad she did. She wasn't given a mandate to keep kids in schools, but I'm glad she did. But she also wasn't given a mandate to address the immigration issue, and I wish she would. And that's kind of where I'm at on that one, Sheldon.
Oh, no, absolutely. And again, that's why because I sat down from the same perspective that you did, as everybody else did when we looked and first seen the referendum questions, and we seen the press conference on this. And that's why the only thing that really makes sense to me on this is that these are questions that will not scare Albertans out of voting. The pension plan is still supercharged. I mean, the Hands Off My Pension campaign was immense. And you still see that same thing being echoed, despite the fact that Carney just committed $100 billion to India. Nobody's saying hands off my pension to the federal government. They are when, the Alberta Prosperity Project dropped in the question on the Alberta pension plan. So there's that portion of it. The other side of things is that for the last decade under Trudeau and throughout the Liberal leadership in Canada, everything has been racially charged. 100%. No, you're called an Islamophobic or a xenophobic. You're a racist if you so much as hint that immigration is causing the issues that we're all seeing. Everybody can see it. Nobody even denies it. People that have immigrated to the country prior to Trudeau are saying the same things. We want our children going to good schools. We want doctors. We want to save on taxes. We want to have our voices represented inside of the communities, and we don't want to dilute the culture in the way it's being diluted. So I think there's a couple of things that are really inside of there. But the biggest thing that I can say is that these are pretty simple questions. These are questions that lead people down a path towards separation. The pension plan, the provincial police, there's already campaigns against those. This is one that Albertans get to have their say on. Do you think that these things are causing issues? Should Alberta be able to control the immigration inside of our province? Should it, should our elections be held secure, our democracy to the people that have paid taxes into the system? Should others have to pay for the usage of our services if they've never contributed before? Those are very, very simple questions that lead down the pathway towards separation. And again, I could be 100% wrong on these, but the way I have it laid out, it makes sense. The way it comes across to me, that's the only thing that makes sense. Can she go ahead and do these things? Absolutely. And then continue to be called a racist and a Nazi and all the rest of this. To me, it's just absolutely insane that people call her tyrannical or her rule tyrannical when she's actually offering the voice of Albertans to weigh in on these very important subjects. It's called tyranny. Like, do these people even know what tyranny means? It's not democracy. Nowhere inside of there are tyrannical leaderships asking for input from their populations or the constituents. It's the absolute inverse. It's the opposite side of the spectrum. Again, I'll go back to what Nenshi did with the First Nations. We got 12 tribal chiefs that nobody elected inside of the province that represent what? 4.5%, 5% of the population on their own federal land or on their own treaty lands that want to dictate democracy to us. To me, that's tyranny. What the Premier's doing is the other side of the spectrum. It's getting input, and it's a set of easy questions. Not all easy. The Senate thing, I'm not sure that a lot of Albertans or a lot of Canadians or a lot of Calgarians are really looped into politics that deep. But it's going to force them to start to, if I want to get out to this referendum, what am I going to answer? I'm going to have to do some research. It's forcing the conversations that we all think we need to have, forcing the situations to lead towards a yes vote for the 10th question.
One would hope so.
Yeah, well, now that you move to the constitutional portion, which are those 4 questions you're talking about, the only advantage I see there, because Alberta can't force Canada. So even if 100% of Albertans say yes to all of those questions, it changes nothing. These are basically marching orders to her to go ahead and pursue this negotiation, which needs 7 provinces that represent 50% of the population, which is the amendment formula. And She could start that now. Like, why are you not starting that process now if you actually believe it needs to be done? But what I think is a good advantage, if you're thinking independence is the right path for you, is it's definitely going to do what you just said there, force people to look into these issues and do their homework, maybe go to some town halls. You're going to hear Premier Smith herself talking about it more. And the realization they should come to is how hard it is to get things done inside of Canada under the current constitutional structure. And these 4 items, as much as you may agree with them, are all but impossible to get done. At least the legacy media is even highlighting that, what I just said there. They're the ones that are also putting out there. The Edmonton Journal and others said, look, these 4 things, they may sound great, but you need the cooperation of the rest of Canada and the House of Commons and the Senate. And you're asking the Senate to kind of like abolish their appointments. Like, good luck with that. They're kind of highlighting how difficult that is. So I think the net positive of this is, if people take the time to look at that, they're going to realize independence is your only way to get those items, because you're not going to get those under the Canadian Constitution.
Well, and that's exactly it. And let's go back to the last referendum question that Albertans were asked in 2021 is on equalization. Now, it has to be a single question, blah, 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 Clarity Act, blah, blah, blah. The question's still the same. It's already been approved, so nothing changes there. But the last referendum was a single question. And it was on equalization payments, where we had the vast majority of Albertans. It was 61.7% of Albertans saying, yeah, we want to abolish equalization payments. We want to keep the money for ourselves. And what's happened with that? I mean, how much closer are we to abolishing equalization payments? We're not. I mean, it's not even a conversation. Ottawa looked at it, they laughed, and they moved on. And they didn't try to balance it. They didn't try to address the voices inside of Alberta. They didn't try to address the referendum. They completely ignored it. Mm-hmm. So they can completely ignore the constitutional portion of the 4 questions on the referendum, the same way that they can completely ignore the first 4 questions, but they can't ignore the big one. Can we separate? We absolutely can. And that's the 10th question. So again, these are, I think, along the same lines of, it's leading up to the inevitable. It's the pathway towards Alberta independence, towards separating, divorcing ourselves from the rest of the country. Again, to me, it's the only thing that makes sense. And when you look at the timeline of this, and a couple of the things that we've seen each other at, the different events, have been the AGMs. You were at the 2023 in Red Deer, sorry, the 2024 in Red Deer. Yeah, 25 in Edmonton. I'd seen you at both of those. Geez, I forgot where I was going. No, so yeah, I did just totally lost train of thought on that.
Well, you were talking about how the equalization. You were talking about how Alberta can't push it. It was ignored, and then the referendum. I think what I'm trying to get at too, and I think this is what we're both doing a good job at, is highlighting to any Albertan who hasn't been paying attention to what's going on at all, that they need to start paying attention. And if you really like these 9 items, like all 9 of them, then you would want that 10th one as well. The people who are paying attention, especially that 61 or 62% that said equalization needs to be abolished or changed, and they couldn't get it, that same 62% should be voting yes for independence, because that's the only way to get to that outcome, to abolishing the equalization. So if 62% of Albertans said, we got to stop paying for the rest of this country, we got to focus on ourselves, we have to stop having deficits because we can't afford it, we're sending tens of billions to the rest of Canada, we're going into deficits of 8 billion. We wouldn't have to do that if we didn't send all this money. Like that 62%, if they showed up and voted, yeah, we need to do independence because that's the only way to get there, then we'll get there, right? So maybe there is. I've been trying, Sheldon. I don't know if you watch my show often, but I've been the moderate conservative that says give her a chance. This one and many others, absolutely not, because they said, no, you can't trust her anymore. And these are just indicators. I'm starting to head towards this side of the table simply because even recently, the last couple of weeks, posts from Danielle Smith herself are saying, I'm all in for Canada. I've picked a side. Like one of the recent posts the last couple of days was that. I'm like, really? Like like, are you really giving us an opportunity to have a citizen-led initiative, or are you putting your thumb on the scale now by saying you think Canada can still work? It sounds to me like you think she's staying. Actually, let me just ask you. I'm not going to assume. Do you think she's staying impartial, or is she picking a side in this conversation at this point?
Okay, I remember where I was going with that whole AGM story. So I got my train of thought back. Excuse me. So what's happening is October 19th is the referendum. November is the AGM.
In Calgary,
so she's going to be in Calgary, and it's every 2 years that there's a leadership vote. So why would she set things up a month before? She's basically reapplying for leadership of the UCP party if she didn't think that this was the successful pathway. Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me. If she thought that this was going to be a complete bomb of an idea, why go through with it? Why not just tackle the immigration situation? And why not just fight for separation? In order for her to get the moderates, and I broke this thing down too by the statistics, because she's thrown these numbers around at several ones of her town halls, and it's on the provincial police force, it's on the Alberta pension plan. 30% of people support us having our own pension plan, our own police force, right? 30% don't. If she wants to win this thing, we have to get the 30% that are in the middle. Now, I know that only makes up like 90%, but there's 10% of Canadians, Albertans, Calgarians, that just simply can't be goaded into paying attention. So we don't worry about those 10%. They're not coming out anyways. It's the 30% that are in the middle that have to be won over, that have to show up to vote. We need the numbers. So let's go off that 30-30-30. I'm sure we've got our 30%. I don't think we're at the 61.7% support that we had on equalization payments. We might be, but there's no guarantee on it. In order for us to get 31%, to get that 50 plus 1% in voting of supporting of separation, we have to get people out, and we have to do this in large numbers. It has to be a very loud statement saying, we have the majority of Albertans, and this is the number of people that showed up. Right now, we're working off of consensus polls and I broke those down the other day too. 80% of Canadians don't want Alberta to separate. Not that anybody gives a shit, especially anybody in Alberta. We don't care what the rest of the country thinks. But they say 80% of Canadians don't want us to separate. But that's off of 1,000 people. And we don't know who they're asking. We don't know where these people are, the demographics of them, or if they're the same liberal voters that they ask about everything. So when we see, what we're going to need to see, which is a large volume of people, a representation of the population of the province come out in a positive, supportive vote for separation, that's absolutely what's going to be required. And I think that's what we need. And inside of that, again, we're going into the leadership campaign or, at the next referendum or the leadership review on Premier Smith, probably less than a month, if not around a month after the referendum is held. And then the following year is an election. So she's got to play this strategically correct if she not only wants to get Albertans out to the polling stations on the referendum questions, but to keep her in support, because following that, we go into an election cycle. And to me, that's terrifying. Now, I went to school with Nenshi. We were in the same school from 7 through 12. He graduated with my sister, so he was a year ahead of me. And he's a smart guy. And, despite the fact that he's really slight, I don't know what he's doing with the NDP leadership. I mean, he's a complete failure there. He's a smart guy, and he's working with the unions to whip people into a frenzy. And it's not going to take much to do that. So, I mean, we all have to kind of get on board with the idea that this is very important. This is a very critical time. October referendum, November leadership vote, the following year election. That's what everybody needs to keep in mind. amongst a thousand other things that are flying at us at lights, and you cover all these other subjects of what's going on inside of Canada and every other reason. Every day there's another reason for Alberta to say, screw you, Canada, we're getting the fuck out of here because we're not going to put up with this anymore. Every day there's something new. And, along with these 9 questions, we can't guarantee what the government's going to do. They flipped the last political election, the last federal election, at the last minute on the CPC. Polyev spent his entire campaign going on, we needed to axe the tax, axe the tax. They sold T-shirts, they sold hats, they shouted at rallies, axe the tax. And coming into the federal election, what did the Liberals do? They axed the tax. So we need to have enough ammunition being built up. We need to have enough Albertans thinking to show up as a representative majority, voting in favor of separation if we want to see this thing going through.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is I'll concede the one point that you're making there, that there's going to be more people that show up. When it gets to the House of Commons, if it's a yes, the clear majority portion of the requirement of the Clarity Act might be met. If a small fraction of Albertans show up for just an independence question, then that's going to be a tougher hill to climb, even if it's a yes. Like, you need a clear majority and a clear question. So maybe this will assist the clear majority portion of that argument in House of Commons. But I'm not a huge fan that these questions are being done. I'm not even a fan of when she announced it. Like, she could have waited till after the petition signature period was done. There's no rush on her side. She could have done it on May 7th, May 8th, and announced, hey, we're having a referendum on independence, and we're going to add these questions to it. Anyways. And I think what you highlighted there about having the referendum in October, and then there's a leadership review in November. I just want to highlight something here, Sheldon, because I speak to a lot of people in the party, MLAs, and leadership. There's a disconnect between the UCP party and the UCP government. And the UCP party is pretty clear what they want. The UCP government is opposite. It's not agreeing with the party. I had MLA Shane Getson on, and he was very clear that the party, the government does not want to move away from their current path, which is we're trying to get these deals done. We want to stay focused on this. We do not want to, and he said these words, we do not want to be distracted by an independence negotiation with Ottawa. We want to stay on the path that we're on. So I think what she might be trying to do, and maybe this could be a challenge to her in the future, we'll see how this referendum goes, but she's paying more attention to what her caucus and her cabinet wants versus the party.
The people. Well,
now, the argument simply is, and this is quoting her, she represents all Albertans. However, if your government is not aligned with the party that puts you there, you absolutely run a risk when it comes to the leadership review. And this is one of the paths that the party has in order to correct the ship. And you saw this happen with Kenny, right? Like, when he was implementing policies against the NDPs loved it, but it's not what the UCP wanted, like not forced, but vaccine passport and other things. They got rid of them. So I think she may be walking a very tight line here. If this referendum comes back as, let's say, yes to everything, and there's a strong support for independence, but she is not speaking about being that leader, she could be looking at a very difficult November. And when she set the stage in Red Deer, when the last leadership review was 91% or 91% or something like that.
Yeah.
This number is going to come in dramatically lower if she doesn't support the party. I wonder if she's setting herself up, without realizing it, that by not working with her base, she's going to lose that support in November, even if she thinks she's doing the best thing for the government and for the rest of Alberta. I guess time will tell. But there's a lot of support within the UCP party now to even Rob Smith put out a statement recently saying he wants to do a vote within the party to see whether or not the party should become an independence party. And the last numbers I saw, the internal polls, it was close to 80% on a yes on that. So I think that would be very difficult for Danielle Smith to have a party that says we're an independence party that she's a leader of, but not lead an independence mandate if the referendum comes back as a yes. I guess we're going to have to see, right?
Well, I mean, the way that the legacy media is working against all of everybody. I mean, it's owned by the liberals. It pushes the liberal narratives. And if you see how effective the Trump derangement syndrome is being drilled into Canadians, that's a big portion of the conversations that are going on. They keep calling us MAGA. Well, I know a lot of people that are involved in the separation movement, a lot of the canvassers, a lot of the people that are helping out in the backgrounds and stuff. None of us are talking about being the 51st state, yet they keep bringing this up. She's just like Trump. Well, how is she like Trump? So, I mean, if you continue to allow the media to continue to reiterate that, that'll lose us the vote, definitely. As a single question, that will lose us the separation, because people will be afraid of being aligned with the United States. So, her taking a neutral side on this thing, saying I have to support all of Albertans, and I have to go through this process, just like she did with the MOU. You were at the last AGM. You've seen how well that MOU was with the audience. I mean, it was pretty bad. It was a bloodbath. But at the same time, she still came out with resounding support, and everybody left the AGM feeling okay about the party. Conservatives are not going to flip to NDP. They're not going to flip to NDP, whether the party and the government are aligned or whether they're not, because the NDP have just have lost sanity. What they talk about is illogical. It's ideological, and it doesn't make sense. Albertans are not going to vote for an NDP government. She's going to keep the party, whether she's representative of them or not. That's not going to change. She may lose her seat, she may lose her leadership, but Albertans are still going to continue to support her. What she needs is the middle section. And the only way to get that middle section out is by showing them the pathway. And I'm going to keep coming back to this. So yeah, she has to go through the process, and it's like everything else. If you have issues with your computer and you're talking to somebody in IT, what's the first thing that they tell you to do?
Turn it off and on.
Turn it on. Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again? You have to go through these processes when you're going through anything. And inside of politics, and especially in the way politics is shaped inside of Canada right now, and because of the way that legacy media portrays everything right as alt-right or as Trump-right or as MAGA Maples or as, whatever they want to call us, the fringe, because they keep throwing this at us. They have constant streams of ammunition. She has to keep on the neutral. She has to maybe not light her hair on fire like the Nenshi NDP. Keep things at a conversation level that's conducive to attracting people into the conversation and then getting them out to a referendum.
Okay. So one more topic, and then we're going to jump into our supporter section. I'm going to invite you to stick around because there's some more conversation to have with them as well. But this by-election announced by Carney. So 3 seats are now going to be up for grabs in April. Can't remember the date, but sometime in April. If he ends up getting all 3 of those, he's got his majority. Will that help any movement for independence? Do you think a lot more Albertans are going to show up if Carney now has a majority to implement whatever he wants, like Bill C-9, et cetera? Bill C-9's being argued even today. Do you think this will help motivate the movement?
No, again, every day, the Liberals, the NDP, the country, the judicial system is giving Albertans another reason to separate. With him as a majority, I mean, the way Albertans are, the way I see it, I'm not going to talk for all Albertans. The way I see it now is the Liberals have been unstoppable up to this point. A clear majority means absolutely nothing. We can't get accountability. We can't get transparency. They hide documents. They hide information. If you look at the the vaccine injury studies, they've locked that up for 15 years. Mm-hmm. Then they've just released another study talking about how all this misinformation has been driven by 100 social media personalities, and now they're introducing C9 to take away our ability to have conversations. It's a steady stream of oppression on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms for all Canadians. But they've been doing that. They've been stomping all over that same charter for 10 years now. I mean, most predominantly over the last 5, but it actually started before that. So, will it help? Actually watching What's-His-Nuts in Edmonton cross the floor, I think that was another reason. If Carney gets a clear majority, that's absolutely another reason. If C9 goes through, that's another reason. And now they're talking about taxing your property, as a, much the same as they're doing in, like Sweden or whatever. You're being taxed on revenues you actually haven't got. If you don't sell your property, you're still taxed on this. So when we look at all these decisions, I mean, everything is one more reason to get out to the polls and vote for Alberta separation. But again, Smith doesn't have a crystal ball. She couldn't see any of these things happening. I mean, they're definitely running her campaign for her. They're running the separation campaign. Jeff Rath says the same thing. Every time Mark Carney gets on stage, he's the biggest promoter of Alberta separation. And they're doing the same thing. But that's not guaranteed. And they can flip the switch whenever they want, in the same way that they did with the Axe the Tax. They axed the tax for the election. They brought it back once Carney was in his seat. They can do this. They can flip-flop on these issues like they want. It's just important that we remember, we see what's going on. We see what happens with this clear majority. They're unstoppable. They were unstoppable without a clear majority, but now they will be completely unstoppable. And that should terrify a lot of people. And that will, I think, absolutely get a lot more Albertans out to the polls. It should get a lot of Canadians out to the polls.
100%. And I'm glad you brought up the home equity tax. I've been warning people about that one for quite some time, because you will be taxed on the value increase unrealized. And that's a market assessment. And if they, do things like bring in too many people, the price of property goes up. There you are, you're taxed. And they don't give you a rebate or a refund if you lost property value. So it doesn't work both ways. Being very clear that this is a way to force people who already own their property or own a significant portion of the property to have to refinance and potentially sell. If you read the WEF, you'll own nothing and be happy. This was part of their plan. And Danielle Smith may not have a crystal ball, but she does have an Amazon account. She should order Mark Carney's book Values and read it, and she'll fully understand where he's going with this, right?
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at the way things are shaping up in Canada, I mean, NDP run BC, surrendering property rights to the First Nations. We've seen the first 100 people kicked out of the mobile park in the Comox Valley. So, I mean, what's happened? And I've seen, figures as large as 25% of value depreciation on homes right now. So they're bringing down the property of values. And if this home equity thing kicks into play and they shift policies a little, these properties can slingshot back up, which means people that, have mortgages higher because their property value is now assessed for more, but may not even be for the same value that they purchased it at. They'll be paying additional funds on these places that they can't afford. I mean, it's the home equity thing is terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah, that was something early in this WEF campaign when I was paying attention to it. I didn't know how they were going to get current homeowners and property owners, like people who are not in the banks, they don't have mortgages. How are they going to get those guys? Well, this is how you tax your home equity, the increase. And a lot of pensioners and people that are on their retirement and they're just kind of coasting now, they're going to have to come up with $20,000, $25,000 a year on their $1.5 million home because it went up to 2 and then went up to 2.5, or they're going to have to sell and start to liquidate. It's ridiculous. Capital gains tax was pushed hard and then it was pushed against. this home equity one is even worse because it's unrealized. You haven't sold, but your value has been assessed higher. And who does the assessments? It's going to be going through a government agency or department that does that.
Wasn't it Freeland that introduced taxing on savings like 4 years ago? Like they wanted to stimulate the economy, so they thought, well, people are sitting on too much money. We've got to get that money into the market. So let's force people to spend money. So let's start taxing them on their savings. I know that was proposed. I don't know what happened to it. It never went through, obviously, but through forced hyperinflation of goods, and especially like foods inside of Canada, they're forcing that money into market anyways. So they didn't have to attack people's savings. So now that they can come after their homes, like I said, it's all terrifying. Can you imagine what Canada's going to look like in 5 years? Like, go out to wherever you shop for your groceries, Superstore, Safeway, Co-op, whatever that looks like, and have a look at the meat prices. I mean, this is going on across Canada. People are looking at, I just want a steak, and a steak is now $45. If not, $45 a pound, right? $50 a pound. What do you think this is going to look like in 5 years, continuing down this same track? I mean, that I don't think people are thinking about. They're so busy struggling trying to keep up with their grocery prices. Over 50% of Canadians are mortgaging their groceries right now. If we continue on this track, what do you think this looks like in 5 years? I mean, the separation thing is laid out for Alberta. We can look around the country, we can look at the prices and say, we can't be a part of this anymore. We can't walk away from the country. We need to run. And everything is just a clear indicator of this. But again, the Liberals coming after savings, through home equity. And again, it was one of the Icelandic countries that's taxing people on unrealized gains in their stock market portfolios. So they actually have to liquidate their stocks, and with the stock markets crashing, if they liquidated their stocks, paid the taxes on those things, they're now left with less equity than they had if they'd have just let it sit there. The government makes the money on something that they didn't create. They're not supporting on money that's already been taxed, saved, and invested. So when it's pulled out, they're going to tax it again. And when you spend it, they're going to tax it again. They're now taxing unrealized gains in the same way that they are with capital gains. It's there's nothing that these people aren't going to try and take away from us.
Well, they tested that out already, and Canadians did not push back, and Canadians paid the bill. That was crypto. Mm-hmm. So crypto, you were taxed on the increase of crypto, so unrealized, before you sold it. And they forced people to sell some in order to pay the tax bill. Canadians didn't even care. They just went ahead and allowed it, and allowed they continued more. And you're right about the savings one, but you also nailed it. They absolutely did do it. They did it through inflation. So that's how they got it, and they created inflation. They can certainly do that.
No, I'm not going to say there's anything wrong with crypto, and I'm not pro or against crypto. It's not another conversation.
But they implemented unrealized gain taxes on crypto, and nobody cared.
Well, but here's the thing about it is I'm sure a lot of people that were in crypto cared, but what percentage of the population of Canada is involved in the crypto markets? And when you have a small percentage of the population that's being impacted, nobody else cares. And that's why they say, don't discuss your problems online, because 90% of the population doesn't give a shit that you have them. The other 10% are happy that you do have these problems. But when that percentage of people that are inside of the crypto markets is small, when you don't even know who's in the crypto markets, they get taxed. Of course, they're going to scream about it. But who are they screaming to? Other people inside of the crypto markets that nobody knows who's even talking. That's a much smaller conversation. There's a lot more homeowners, is what I'm saying, than there are people inside of the crypto markets. Your argument is strong. Canadians didn't push back against the unrealized gains on crypto markets. There's a lot more homeowners in Canada than there are people inside of the crypto markets. This is a much, much bigger conversation.
Yeah, and what they could be doing is, and I call this, I'm sure there's a clinical or an actual term for this, or an economic term for this, but you remember, what was his name? Not Carmen, the guy from Modern Family.
Cameron.
Okay, so Cameron laid it out on one episode. He goes, the way I get everything I want is I come in really high, and then I get them to settle where I wanted them to be settled. Like, I want 5 big fountains in my backyard when it only wants 1. Could this be what the Liberals are doing, preparing themselves for an election issue? Come in with unrealized gain tax, home equity tax, and then pull it away later so that they can get away with everything else they're doing. Because if we're all focused on this, fighting this, and then go, okay, we heard you, we're going to drop it, suddenly they look like the good guys. Same thing they did with the carbon tax at the election. Even though they didn't get rid of it, they just zeroed it out, kept the legislation, and now Alberta agrees with it under that MOU. So anyways, what I want to get at now is let's hang on. We're going to go to our private side. We're going to get into some more of this conversation. You've been very enlightening when it comes to your perspective. We agree on a lot. But I think you're more moderate than I am. I used to be more like you, like 2 months ago. So maybe I'm in between you and my wife now. But hang on, Sheldon, because
let me say one more thing just before we kind of go in, before you kind of take this little break here, is that it's great that we all have different perspectives on this, because this isn't a single conversation, and there are more groups that be represented than can be represented by people shouting at town halls. There's people that aren't going to go to those town halls, but these conversations still have to happen, and they're going to happen in the context that people are going to accept them. So you guys can absolutely have your look at the way the questions are being presented, or the way the referendum's going, your outlook on separation. I can have mine, and 30 other people that have these same conversations with their groups can have theirs. There's a a Venn diagram where we're going to all have a core group of those same people inside of the conversations, but then there's going to be all the other offshoots of people that we get to have our conversations with. All of these conversations are important. Nobody's got the right answer, and we all need to keep having them. I'll let you go to your cut now.
Oh, I thank you very much. You're now the producer of the show.
I'm just taking over. I'm taking shit over, man. That's what I do.
And back to you, Jay. And this is why I wanted you on, was your Substack. Your Substack was kind of outline, and I'm not using the word defending, but explaining your perspective on the Danielle Smith referendum stuff. And I'm glad you shared it with us, because we're not an echo chamber. Okay. Yeah. And we got into a little bit of heat last week for having a geopolitical conversation with Matt Ehret and Michael Yon, because it brought up a whole bunch of issues that go back thousands of years, and it was uncomfortable for a lot of people. We're not an echo chamber. We're anything but. So thank you very much for coming on. Hang out. There's some more that we want to hang out with you on and ask some more questions with our supporters, and then get you back to your day. But thank you very much for throwing it to me, and I'll go ahead and wrap up now.
I'm on my headset. I'll be going out for a dart. Talk to me if you need to. I just might not be on camera.
Fair enough. Sounds good. We'll chat soon. Yeah. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go let him have his dart. To those people that don't understand, he's going to go have a smoke. But he's on his headset, and we'll be able to chat with him. But go ahead, do your thing.
Yeah, no, so everyone, thanks for joining us. Hope you've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been quite fun in the chat. So thank you very much for participating. And then you can, go ahead and join us in our supporter section right now. And as we carry on the conversation with, I love it, Yak Stack. That's pretty cool. And yes, I did put Sheldon's Substack link in the chat. So you can go ahead and check out some of the articles and some he shared in the past.
Thank you all very much. This was a fun conversation to have. He's a little bit more pro Danielle Smith than some of you, and some of you will absolutely agree where he's coming from. It's the current leader. You got to work with what you got. And maybe this is a benefit, having all those questions. I still hold the position that she could have just done it, the policy ones, and the constitutional ones not going to move the needle at all. But you can go back to our Leighton Gray conversation. Bruce Party was a good one. And I'm now getting this. Anyways, folks, have yourself a wonderful day. Make sure you take care of each other.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.
God bless.